And it's so common that nobody says anything because they either feel like they did something wrong, or people are going to judge them, or they're going to look at them bad, or it's all horrible thoughts. Who I need to be, coming from the heart,
coming from the heart. Welcome back to MOMnation from the Heart. And now a word from our sponsor.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Gilliam, Senior Mortgage Banker with Waterstone Mortgage. If you're looking to buy a new home or even refinance a current one, I'm able to help you find the best program and interest rate that fits your specific needs. You could call me anytime directly at phone number 480-635-3035 if you have any mortgage questions or if you're ready to get pre-approved for a new home purchase. Thank you.
Hey, MOMnation, we are back with another episode of From the Heart, where we share inspirational stories, useful information, and we discuss a variety of women-related topics. I'm Katie, the founder of MOMnation, and I would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to our guest, Shannon Gardner. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. You look beautiful. I love your shirt.
Thank you.
So cute. No, it's so cute. It's totally your style too. You're always so cutely put together with beautiful bright lipstick. I love it. So today, guys, as you know, we talk about the hard stuff here. I think as these shows continue, you're kind of catching glimpses more and more of my story. I shared a lot on, if you follow us at all and you caught the mental wealth episode of last month, I shared a similar circumstance to what Shannon's going to share today. And the unfortunate part, Shannon and I were just discussing before we hopped on, is the unfortunate part is that it has happened to a lot of us women. And, I don't know about you, Shannon, if this is kind of how it went for you throughout your life. But in my life, when it happened, it was actually discovered by another adult when it happened to me. And that's when it stopped, thankfully. And, but I was sort of meant to just sort of like carry on. I was a little girl. I was a year older than my son. So I was 9 and in the 3rd grade. And it was just expected that I carried on and I got good grades and I behaved myself and I did what was expected of me to do. And nobody addressed what happened.
Right.
And I feel like I got the tissues already. Like, I feel like how many other women and men too, because this happens to men, but how many children has this happened to, and they didn't get help and they were just expected to perform.
Right. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what that means for you.
With me, it was 5. I was 5. And it was, my mom worked 2 jobs and had to take me to a caregiver. It was an older couple, of course, older at the age of 5, everybody's older.
Right.
But, and it was a continuous thing. So with the husband and what was really bad was, because it happened so young, is that I carried on thinking that all men did that.
Right.
So whenever there would be a male that would even like help my mom dress me in anything, that man was going to do something bad. So I would just lose it, but nobody caught on. Nobody, I don't know if they just didn't think anything, or maybe they didn't want to think anything happened. But I actually lived with this until I was in high school, before I even told my mom. So I get it. I get you have to just kind of like, I was a rebellious kid because, going through all the mental stuff and trying to live life and do what's expected of you and so on. But so I get that part is tough. But it's crazy because I don't know if you remember when they had after school specials on TV, you know, they
Yes.
had, that's when it clicked for me. I had to, because I was sitting there watching a program and it was about sexual abuse. And I couldn't even sit there and watch it. And that's when I told my mom, and my mom was like, I don't understand why you didn't say anything before. And it's so common that nobody says anything because they either feel like they did something wrong, or people are going to judge them, or they're going to look at them bad, or it's all horrible thoughts. So that you just, you don't say anything, but you can only carry that burden for so long.
And I think that people don't realize just exactly what is stolen from you.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, like, and I don't know if you feel like this, but my ability to have a first time with somebody that I love was stolen from me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's gone.
It's gone. Yep.
And I don't think that's something that's realized either.
Mm-mm.
And how much that plays into, or could play into potential relationships later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like potentially having a sort of detachment or a coldness maybe toward your partner, because that all didn't develop naturally in the way that it should have developed.
Right.
Do you feel that you had some effect in that department?
I am on my fourth marriage.
Yeah.
And of course, some people, because people that don't know, they'll go, well, why didn't you get it right the first 3 times? And it's like, well, because they didn't understand what was going on. There's still triggers. There's still things like, don't touch me that way. Don't say that. Don't look at me that way. And they never understood that. So it was a constant battle, and they didn't get it. So it's like, well, then this isn't going to work.
Right. And maybe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or by any means, but maybe you didn't understand it either.
Right.
And so there's this sort of like, well, I haven't come to terms with everything and figured everything out yet. So it's difficult to communicate that to a partner in a way that they could potentially understand.
Right. And my husband now, we've been married 7 years, and he gets it. He just gets it. And I don't know if it's because he's older, he's been through the life and he understands, but he just understands. If I have, like, I had to go through things with him not to do, not to say, and he's okay with it. So he understands, which that makes it so much easier when you have somebody that you can say, don't do that because I can't deal. And, and that goes into the healing. I know for myself, I'm never going to be 100%. It's never going to be okay. So there's still things that's like, I can't handle a man standing behind me. He can't be in my breathing space. You're too close. And there's just certain things. But just, that's something that you just never get over.
Do you have any closure with this individual? Were you ever able to communicate this? Did it ever come out? Is he aware that it's out in the open? Like, what ever happened with that?
He passed away like before I told my mom. He had died. So of course my mom's like, I wish you would have told me before. I said, well, no, it's probably good I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know what she would have done, but yeah. So there was never that kind of closure. And to be honest, I've never gone to therapy.
Really?
Mm-mm. And I've always said I need to. I just need to go. But it's like, does a therapist really need to hear the disgusting details? But then it's like, but they've probably heard it every day.
Yeah, but mine doesn't ask the disgusting details. I have never given detail or, unless there was a significance for that to give it. I never really have. And, what's been helpful for me is healing that little girl, and that little girl being heard and seen, because I don't know about you, but all my life, until I started dealing with it, didn't feel heard and seen.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, and also realizing that, maybe the details of my situation and the details of your situation are different. And if somebody were to look at those two, black and white, and compare those details, one could potentially be more severe than the other, but that doesn't mean that the less severe situation didn't have effect on that individual.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was giant for me, because there were some other stories. So for me, it was a cousin. It was an older cousin. He was 5 years older than me. And there were some other stories floating around the family of it having happened with, between other family members that didn't have anything to do with me. And I always, though I never knew those details, I always thought that was a more severe situation than what happened with me.
Right.
And coming to terms with the fact that no, any sort of activity is wrong. And the way that I felt about myself coming out of it, and then the habits that I developed as my defense mechanisms coming out of it, were so destructive to my personal life that needed to be dealt with, because I was just going to prolong this forever.
Yep. And I think with me holding it in for so many years, I don't know how things would have been different if I would have told her earlier or at the time, or again, I was 5, so I had no idea. And, and you just learn to cope. Like you said earlier, we learn to cope. We learn to just go through life and think, okay, well, maybe that was normal, or maybe I am over exaggerating, or just all kinds of things. And you look around, and at that time, it was just my mom that knew. I didn't even tell anyone else until, let's see, 10 years, maybe 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago.
Wow.
Was when I finally, and I'm getting ready to hit 50. So I didn't tell anybody for that long. And this is where I'm going to struggle. My biggest fear was, what's my son going to think? I didn't want to tell my son. Because he protects his mama, and until this day, he hasn't said anything about it. He don't talk about it. I don't know if he's just doesn't want to talk about it, or doesn't want to know, or maybe he just doesn't want to deal, because he's protective of his mama. And that was tough. It's like, do I really want to put this out where my son's going to find out? So
he's aware.
Oh yeah, he's aware. He's gonna be 30. He'll be 30 in September. So.
Oh wow. And it's just not something that gets brought up at the dinner table, basically.
Right. And I don't really know how he feels about it, and I don't want to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know if he really wants to deal.
Yeah.
So that's been that was the toughest out of everything. That was the toughest thing. So
when you shared with your mom, what drove you to do that?
I don't think I could handle it anymore. Because I would see things, or somebody would joke about something, or TV, or just, it was really weighing on me hard. It was like, I just can't do it by myself anymore. And I really didn't want to tell. I really didn't, but I knew I had to keep my what sanity I had. I had to say something.
And was the wife still alive at that point? Does she know?
I'm sure she did.
You think she was aware?
Oh,
you were really?
Yeah.
Did they
I
have
think
kids?
so. No, not at that time. They didn't, and not at the house. But yeah, now when I look back, it's like, how could she not?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because it was a like an ongoing occurrence. It's like, how do you not know?
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's heartbreaking. So when you shared it with your mom, how did that conversation go? How did you even, did you just sit her down and say, hey, I gotta tell you something?
pretty much I just said, Mom, I need to talk to you. Of course, first she's like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant.
They always think that, mothers.
I was like, no, nothing like that. So I had told, I asked her if she remembered who he was, and she said, yeah. And then I just told her what he was doing. And I didn't get into detail. I don't think I've ever gotten into detail, but I just told her, somewhat around about what he was doing and stuff. So, and you could tell she wasn't sure how to, I mean, who would? I mean, that's like going up and gut punching somebody,
Yeah.
but and then of course the questions came out, well, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you? It's like, no, it's not that easy. It's
And
really
and
not.
and you don't necessarily know to say anything, right?
Right.
Like you got to fight through that too, because society treats it, sorry, but treats it like it's
Mhm.
normal.
Right. And that's why, again, I all men did that.
Yeah.
So I just used it whenever a man would come around me. So
So what happened after that?
well, my dad, it really hit him hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's he really, and to this day he hasn't really talked about it. I don't think he ever will. But it was a little uncomfortable. I felt a little weird afterwards. It was like, should I have done that? So then I started questioning myself, and I questioned myself when I did it 10 years when I told, it's like, was that right? Should I have done it? Because where did it get me? So then you start,
Right.
all those questions start flowing. And where did it get me? Did it help? Or am I going to be okay? Is the family going to be weird? But it kind of like went quiet. There was no discussion. There was nothing. So I don't know if my mom was just like kind of in a denial, or if she was just mad at herself because she didn't know. I know she wasn't mad at me because she made it very clear. But maybe she was, mad at herself for not seeing it and not knowing, because she worked. I mean, she worked 2 jobs. She was always gone, always whatever. But so I don't know. I don't know what was going through her head, but it never really went anywhere. But I felt a little bit better about it, but I still didn't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It still was taboo. I can't talk about it. Can't tell anybody. So
Why did you feel like you couldn't tell anybody? Were you told that? Was that one of your things with him? Like, did he tell you that?
um no, he never really said anything. I don't know if it's because I was so young that he wasn't worried about it, or he could say, well, she's telling a story or whatever, or she doesn't know what she's talking about. But yeah, I never never said anything like that, which is kind of weird now that I think about it.
It is, because typically,
That's the first thing they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically. And you waited quite a while. So it stopped.
Mhm.
So it stopped. So you were 5, and did it stop
Mhm.
shortly after?
Yeah, it wasn't very long after.
Thankfully.
Yeah,
And
I know.
so you're like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old dealing with this.
Mhm.
You remember that 6-year-old, 7-year-old mind? And do you remember sort of contemplating? Did you ever contemplate telling your mom, or?
Nope. It's like I buried it. I buried it because it never really bothered me until I got in high school. And I think that's because, everybody's starting to get active and talk about stuff. And it was just like, and then I would the TV shows and the movies and stuff. And I was like, I can't handle this, because it was like, it started to like, it was like a wave over me. And I was like, I gotta say something.
It was tugging at you. It's like something
Mhm.
is telling me that something needs to change. And
Yes.
I mean, good, because you holding something like that
Mhm.
is so damaging,
Yeah.
on a personal level. And again, sort of seeps into all of the other parts of life, right?
Yeah.
Our relationships, our parenting, our, do you feel because that was something that happened to you, you're a bit more sensitive about stuff like that? I certainly am. Like with
Yeah.
raising my little boy, I was really sensitive. There were only certain people that kept him overnight or bathed him. Like it was a
Mhm.
very small amount.
Yep. And I don't know if that's why my son's the way he is. Because, I was a single mom for quite a while, and he didn't like people touching me. He didn't like people hugging me, and he didn't even know. So if I don't know if maybe somewhere along the parenting and the raising, I taught him that without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's very, and he's, I would have to tell him, it's okay, Blake. It's okay, and I never realized that he was, that maybe I ingrained it into him, and just didn't even realize I was doing it.
Think about it. I mean, think
Mhm.
about day in and day out and incidents and, the things that you say. I just had this conversation with my husband actually earlier today, and just really thinking about the words used and the things that I say or that he says, both of us,
Mhm.
um, as we're speaking to our son, especially the older that he gets,
Mhm.
and just really trying to not talk down to him by any means, but speak to him on his kid level. And so
Yep.
we've just been really dissecting how we say things in regular everyday situations.
Yep.
And it's interesting once you start doing that, the
Mhm.
stuff that you say that you can dial directly back. I'm a firm believer, everything comes from our childhood, everything.
Yep.
And so you can, dial it back directly to, oh, that's something my mom used to say, or that's something my dad used to say, or
Yeah.
the reason why I focus on this is because I had to focus on this so much as a child, because that's how my parents were.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's crazy because, like I said, I buried it. I mean, I at least I thought I did, I just carried on with life. And all of a sudden it was like, no, this isn't going to stay buried anymore. It's got to come out.
It has
It's,
other plans.
yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you had mentioned earlier in the show that you haven't crossed the therapy threshold yet.
Mm-mm.
And that's always going to be there for you whenever you feel ready to do that. That's
Right.
always going to be there for you. So we all do things at our own pace at different times. But what kinds of things have you done to overcome, to heal, to feel like your true self?
Well, I can talk to my husband, which is nice because I didn't have that before, without being looked at funny or arguing about something. So having that, and one of the things that I've always said that I'm going to do is, if I help just one other person, doesn't have to be 5 people, doesn't have to be 10. If I had one woman come to me and say, what you said and what you're doing inspired me, and now I'm going to tell, I've hit my goal. Because as I said earlier, we're never going to be 100%. I mean, I have my bad days. I have my days where I'm like, just leave me alone. I'm having an emotional hormonal day, and it stems, it all gathers up, and it's like, I need a minute.
Mhm.
But to be able to know that you've helped at least one person, that is huge for me. I've told people, you're never going to get over it. There's no way to get over it. You just have to learn how to take a deep breath, and therapy, if that helps, or if there's meditation or just alone time, or whatever, each person has their ways. But with me, it's just knowing that I have the support, and he understands if I need time away, or if I need to go out with my best friend just to have a drink, just to decompress. There's no issues, because we're already going through a lot of mental issues, and then to have that tug, like, okay, now I've got to explain to you why I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't have to. So that's great.
That's awesome. And so, you've mentioned you've had a couple of relationships until this one, or prior to this one. Do you feel like, and we don't have to get into detail by any means, but do you feel like those past relationships were affected drastically by the situation? Yeah.
Yep. Huge.
Yeah.
It was because they didn't understand and they didn't want to hear it.
Really?
Yeah.
So having gone through that and having been with people who didn't understand, didn't want to hear it, what is different about your current husband? When did you decide to share the information with him? Can you help me understand how that all unfolded, and what you saw as a sign that said, hey, this is the one?
Well, and I obviously told him before we got married, because I was like, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
And I just had to explain to him that, I could be a roller coaster ride. I can be moody, and I could, well, and then a couple of times he would say something that just triggered me. And I'm like, all right, you can't say that. And then I thought, I just have to tell him, because he's not gonna understand.
Mhm.
So I told him, and I was expecting the same response as the past, like, oh, well, okay, but nope, I got it. I understand. Just let me know, if there's something I can do, or if I do something and you don't like it, just let me know. So I thought, all right, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that was huge. It was huge. And then I told him before I told the world, because when I say I told the world, I made a YouTube video, told the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I find this and can I put it in the show notes? Are you
Yeah,
okay with that?
I'll send it. Yeah, I'll send you the link when I yeah, I'll get you the link.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, and it took me a while to hit that submit button.
I'm
like,
sure.
oh, do I
I'm
really
sure
want to
because this is going out to obviously your network. So the first people who are going to see it are your family and friends.
And again, and that's where the whole, do I want to do this? Do I want my son to see this? Because I hadn't even told him. He found out with the rest of the world.
Wow.
Yeah, which I probably should have done it a little differently, but
Hey,
yeah.
We can't fault ourselves for
Yeah.
what we thought was the right way to do it at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I get it. It's a lot of feelings to sort through. It's a lot of what ifs to sort through. And it sounds like you just kind of ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Yeah. I ripped it off pretty hard because after I did that video and put it out, it was for, I don't know. I locked down for a few days. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to do anything. And that's when I started hesitating, like, should I have done that? Because it shut me down for a while.
Is that because you were second guessing doing that, or is that because you started receiving some feedback from what you had shared?
No, I was second guessing, like maybe I shouldn't have done that. And all those questions started coming around, like, okay, am I overdoing this? Are people going to look at me funny? Is my business going to suffer? That was another thing. It's like, are my customers going to be like, oh, I can't do business with her? I mean, those are the things going through my head.
Of course.
Customers are going to turn away now. They're not going to buy from me because they're going to think I'm weird. And a lot of people don't understand that haven't experienced that. It's like, you don't want people to look at you like you're weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not weird. Trust me. I guarantee you 20 other women in this room have experienced the same thing.
Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, I'm nearly 43 years old. I've got just a little over a month to go. And it's an interesting thing when you cross the 40 mark. I don't know if you experience this when you cross the 40 mark, but that's sort of when I had those same fears as well, because I've been sort of vocal about past traumas and childhood abuse and things like that. And I had those same exact fears. So I know totally what you're talking about. I kind of, I don't know if it's an age thing, but I kind of don't care at this point. Like if somebody doesn't want to interact with me because I was abused as a child, okay, I probably don't want to interact with you either. So thank you, universe.
Right. Because they most likely don't understand and they're not going
to. Right. Or they have some sort of thing that's going on with them that, maybe they haven't come out about or shared, and it makes them uncomfortable. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So what ended up happening? So first of all, did you get any feedback from that video?
I did. I had a lot of women. Of course, like I said, I'd shut down for a few days, so I hadn't seen it right away, but I had a lot of women IM me, send me private messages saying, thank you for doing that. I did, I do have one woman that hadn't told, and she says, I'm going to tell now. And I was like, there it is.
There's your once.
There it is. So, and it was so overwhelming actually of how many women that I knew and that I know has said that's happened to me. And it's like, I would have never guessed. Would have never guessed.
Because we do such a damn good job.
Yes.
Maintaining.
Yes.
Continuing.
We put the smile on and we carry on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Half my friends are like, wow, I thought you were just lucky and you've always been this way.
You're like, no, I'm just good at it.
Yeah. So you got some feedback. You came back after being on hiatus for a minute, rightfully so, totally understandable. So what really did happen after that? So were your fears realized, or were you like, oh my gosh, those were fears?
Nothing bad. It was, I was in my own head, which, we do that. And I was overdoing the thoughts, it's like, really, that wasn't that bad. I mean, I had nobody come out and say anything cruel or wrong. It was mind blowing that I had thousands of views on that video, and it's like, okay. And I was waiting for some cruel, how people can be, they can be cruel, and nothing. And I was like, okay, thank you for that. Cause I don't think I could have taken a cruel comment, but
yeah, keyboard warriors.
Exactly. And it was quote unquote nice to get the response. But then on the other hand, it's sad because there's so many of them. So I was blown away. I was blown off my feet about at the number of women that reached out and said, me too, and I was like, how many women? It's insane.
But the more that we come together, the more that we support each other, and the more that we tell our story, hopefully we can, you may never stop it, but hopefully we can at least slow it down. Or maybe it happens to less people, or maybe, the right mama out there hears it and decides to change the way they're doing things. And therefore that changes any opportunity for their child to suffer this. And I'm not saying it's mom's fault by any means, but like you said, your mom was working 2 jobs and these people were your caretakers. Well, maybe if she would have heard something similar to this, maybe she would have then thought to do something a little bit different that could have changed your scenario.
Right. Because I think the older we get, the more we start pointing out things like, okay, to the younger generation, you need to watch, or they're not acting right or something's not right. And sometimes they look at you like, oh, it's okay. It's like, no, it's not okay. Trust me, something's not right. Trust me, I know something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be a lot more of that. People shouldn't be afraid to say something. I mean, like if they see something, I know it's hard as like us, for us to say something because we hid it for so long, but it's like, if you see something, say something because it's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. So you came out to the world. This was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a few years.
Mm-hmm.
How is life different? How are you different? Do you feel different? Do you think different then versus now? Like prior to coming out versus now?
I'm better because now I can talk about it. Before I was always afraid I was going to slip and say something, and I obviously wasn't ready to do that. So now I don't have a problem talking about it. It gets easier
Yeah.
because it used to be where I wouldn't make it 2 minutes in and I'd be like a complete mess. So it gets easier as time goes on. And I've told my husband, again, I wish I had millions of dollars to put together something, a place for women to go to and help them, because there's so many of them and there's so many that don't have the support and they need it. But, if they don't have it, they're just going to keep it inside. And we know how damaging that is. But it's helped me to come out and say, it took too many years, but it's helped a lot. And it's helped me hopefully help others by telling my story.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I had no idea that not sharing and not getting help for it was going to impact so much and so many other people's lives. So we're talking, romantic partners to children to other family members that may not even know what's going on and why I'm doing the things I'm doing or behaving the way that I'm behaving.
Right.
And so I feel like if other women out there who might be struggling with the same thing realized, hey, yeah, I have a few fears that XYZ might happen, but it's worth that risk versus failed relationships versus potentially failed relationships with children versus, potentially even we can train our kids to, how do I want to say this? The way that I behave in some situations, the way that I'm triggered aren't necessarily my traumas. And this is something that I'm figuring out too, in the whole therapy road. Some of the things that I do and some of the ways I behave and the things that I say and the way that I think are a result of learning that behavior from a parent that had trauma that was unresolved.
Right.
Right. So we're now passing down generationally these behaviors. So if I don't get my stuff resolved, I'm potentially teaching my child ways of behavior that may or may not work for him based on my traumas, I guess is a really long way of me getting to that conclusion.
Right. No, and I get it. And again, it's like going back to my son. I not knowing, I probably molded him to be the way he is. Don't touch women. Basically, and he, I mean, for the longest time, he would go off like a lunatic. They'll touch my mom. And it's like, it's okay. But it never dawned on me that I probably did that to him, which is okay. I'm glad he's protective, and he's married and he has kids and he's protective. So I'm okay with that. I'm just glad I didn't, because I was a wild child in school. And I'm glad that he didn't, he had his moments in school, but I'm glad he didn't go the path that I was heading down.
Mhm.
Thank God for that. So I hopefully steered him clear of all that.
Well,
But,
it sounds like you did a wonderful job. I mean, we're not perfect. We're humans. And I think, the very definition of that word should include not perfect.
Mhm.
And we're all going to have our things, but the more awareness that we have, like the awareness, like I was telling you, I was having a conversation with my husband about our words and what we choose to focus on and how we communicate with our child, and how that's actually, or how that's potentially being received on the other end. Is it the way we want it to be received? You know what I mean? So I think that the more that we understand as parents, as spouses, as, daughters, aunts, cousins, whatever, like all these roles that we play, I think that it's just a really, awareness is just like at the top of the charts in terms of being important.
Yep.
And so, lastly, you want to help others. Obviously, you're speaking out. You're here with me today. Thank you again for that. You did a video a couple of years ago that helped some people quite immediately. Do you have any other plans or any other things that you're doing right now to sort of spread this awareness and get your story out there and help others?
Like I said, I want to continue. I mean, if women, even after this, I expect I'll probably get a couple messages because it happens every time.
Mhm.
And that's fine. That's actually great because I feel like I can be someone they can just, I don't have to speak. They can just talk, get it out, and then move on. Kind of like I think sometimes we just need to vent and we need to, as we say, just spit it all out and then carry on with life. And so my goal is just to be there for those women that just want to talk, or they just want to have somebody just listen and not speak. Because I know I've been like that sometimes. Just listen to me. I don't need you to answer me. I just need you to just listen. And just continue putting it out there that, no one's by themselves, because I think that's a big fear for everybody. They're afraid they're the only one. And trust me, they're not.
By
There's
far.
tons. There's tons. And health wise, I just think it's horrible that we hold it in. It's not healthy in any way.
No. And, again, coming back to that point that it affects so many other things. It's not just relationships. It certainly physically affects you.
It does. In your mind and the way you live, it's everyday life. It changes so much. And once I put it out there, it's kind of like, okay, the weight is off my shoulders. Now I don't have to fake it anymore. I don't have to put the fake smile on anymore. If I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. And that was great. And I didn't have to hide it anymore.
So you feel more honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And there's something really magical in that.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we wrap this up?
Just, you're not alone. That's the most important thing. I don't want anybody to feel like they can't, maybe they're not ready, but if you can get the courage up just to tell that one person, just getting it out is, I think, the most important. You don't have to do what I did and tell the world. Of course, it took me quite a few years after telling my mom to tell the world, but once you get it out, it's a relief. It's a weight off your shoulders for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yep.
If somebody were to want to reach out to you, you said you like getting the messages and things like that. If somebody were to want to reach out to you, what's the best way that they can do that?
They can message me on Facebook. And then if you want, we can put my email down in the notes, and people could just email me and I'll even put my phone number down there. I have no problem doing that.
Do you want to give your email address out here right now? And I can link it.
It's shannon.gardner.2016@gmail.com.
Awesome. Got it. Perfect. All right, Shannon. Well, it's been amazing talking with you. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your courage in coming on to here and sharing your story. And I can relate so much with your goals and your reasons for doing that, because I too just really am passionate about getting this type of information out. Support of women in general, really,
Yeah.
is what I'm most passionate about. And I think that this is such a huge topic that doesn't get touched enough, that the awareness needs to be built.
Yep, I agree.
I really appreciate you being here. If you out there are interested in being a guest on our show, please follow us at MOMnation. It's actually at MOMnation USA is our handle on Facebook. Give us a like while you're there and send us a message. We are on Instagram and YouTube as well. In fact, on YouTube, if you go, it's again at MOMnation USA. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have a playlist for this podcast, this From the Heart podcast. If you would like to watch the video, you can absolutely do that over on YouTube. While you are here listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, please subscribe, download, and rate us so that you can help us get this info out to the masses. Share with your friends, invite women that you think really need to hear this. Please do us and them a favor. All right, guys, until next time, thank you, Shannon. Bye.
Bye.